So picture this. A road stretches endlessly ahead of you. Streetlights blur past in steady intervals, appearing and disappearing like a pulse. The hum of tires against the pavement become almost rhythmic, hypnotic. Just that sound over and over again. It's the kind of drive where your thoughts begin to drift, where the outside world feels distant and unreal. It's late. Not just late in the evening, late in that way where the world feels half asleep. Businesses are closed, houses are dark, the roads feel emptier than they should. You're alone. Then you see someone standing on the side of the road, a lone figure. At first, it's hard to make out any details. They're either facing away from traffic or looking directly at you. It's difficult to tell in the low light. As you draw closer, they raise a hand. Not urgently, not desperately, just a small, controlled gesture. Non-threatening, it's a hitchhiker. In most versions of this legend, the hitchhiker appears young, sometimes a teenage girl, sometimes a young man, occasionally even a child. They're often described as pale, quiet, and oddly calm. Their clothing almost always stands out. Outdated, old-fashioned, and belonging to another era. Could be a prom dress from decades past, a military uniform that hasn't been worn in generations, and sometimes a coat or scarf that just feels strangely out of place on a modern highway. So, you slow down. There's hesitation, as there always is. A quiet voice in your head tells you not to stop, but another voice reminds you how empty the road is, how harmless they look, and how alone they seem. Against your better judgment, you pull over. The hitchhiker opens the door and gets in, and the moment they do, something changes. The air inside the car feels different, colder, heavier. Some witnesses describe a sudden drop in temperature. Others say it feels like the atmosphere itself has shifted, as though a weight has settled inside the vehicle. Many report an overwhelming sense of sadness, the kind that doesn't belong to you but presses in your chest anyway. The hitchhiker gives an address. Sometimes it's vague, just down the road, near the old church, by the cemetery. Other times it's specific, a street name, an exact house number, or a landmark that no longer exists but maybe did at one point. They sit quietly for most of this ride, and if they speak at all, it's softly, politely, almost apologetically, as though they don't want to be a burden, so they rarely make eye contact. Their gaze stays fixed out that window, watching the dark landscape pass by. The radio may cut out, the clock might stop ticking. Some drivers feel suddenly disorientated, as though the road has stretched longer than it should, and then somewhere along the journey, it happens. You glance over, and the seat is empty. No sound of a door opening, no rush of air, no movement at all whatsoever. Just gone. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is one of the most widespread and enduring urban legends in human history. Folklorists have documented versions of the story across continents, cultures, and centuries. In Chicago, the most famous version is the Resurrection Mary. Mary is said to have been a young woman who died in the 1930s after being struck by a car while walking home from a dance hall. Since then, drivers along Archer Avenue report picking up a blonde woman wearing a white dress and dancing shoes. She asks for a ride, she gives a destination, and when the car reaches Resurrection Cemetery, she disappears. Some drivers say she fades slowly before becoming transparent and vanishing entirely. Others say she's simply not there the next time that they look. In the car one minute and gone the next. In California, a similar legend is known as the White Lady of Niles Canyon. She's often picked up near dangerous curves where fatal accidents have occurred in the past. In Texas, there are stories of hitchhikers dressed in outdated cowboy clothing, and they vanish near old ranch roads. In Europe, variations of the legend predate automobiles entirely. Travelers reported picking up strangers on horseback or in carriages, only to have them disappear before reaching their destination. In Japan, there are modern urban legends of spectral passengers appearing in taxis following natural disasters, particularly earthquakes and tsunamis as well. Drivers report passengers who give real addresses, but when the taxi arrives, the passenger is just gone, leaving the driver alone and the meter still running. Across cultures, certain details remain eerily consistent. The hitchhiker is almost never hostile, they do not threaten, and they do not harm. In many variations, they leave something behind. Could be a coat draped over the seat, a purse, a scarf, a nickel. When the driver returns the item to the address provided, they're met with devastating news. That person died years ago. Sometimes the family recognizes the item immediately, and sometimes they say it was buried with them. In the most chilling versions, the item later appears placed neatly on the person's grave, as though returned by someone who was never alive. So why do these stories persist? Because unlike many paranormal encounters, the vanishing hitchhiker is not aggressive. They don't chase and they don't frighten intentionally. They simply exist between moments. Some researchers believe that there are spirits unaware of their own death, trapped in a loop and replaying their final journey over and over again. Others believe they are manifestations of collective memory, stories told so often that they imprint themselves onto specific locations, turning roads into stages for repeated encounters. And that theory in particular is very fascinating to me. Another theory suggests time slips, moments where the past briefly overlaps with the present. So you're not seeing a ghost, you're seeing someone who was once alive exactly as they were. What makes the vanishing hitchhiker so unsettling is just how ordinary it feels. No warning, no spectacle, no grand reveal, just a quiet reminder that not everyone on the road is truly alive.